Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League. I'm Robbie Mustoe and he's not Robbie Earl, but instead a special guest host, Danny Higginbotham, joins us for today's show. Here are today's topics. Arsenal keep the title race in cruise control and drift by Brentford with a 2-0 win at the Emirates. Chelsea follow up their impressive draw against Arsenal on the weekend with a shocking 3-1 loss to Leeds United that hinders their title hopes. Arne Slot's frustrations continue to simmer after a 1-1 draw at Anfield against Sunderland. Cristian Romero's brace helps Thomas Frank and Spurs spare their blushes in an entertaining 2-2 draw at Newcastle. And Erling Haaland sets Premier League history in a wild and wacky 5-4 win at Fulham. That's what we have coming up in today's episode. Danny, thanks so much for coming on, mate. It's great to work with you and see you on our coverage this midweek. I know you got one more game tomorrow. The Premier League, my friend, it's a moving animal, isn't it? It's always changing. It's always unpredictable. That's what makes the Premier League great. We've had a lot of late goals, a lot of drama. A lot of the big clubs, again, get pushed, get challenged by all the teams in this league. I think we both agree that, the quality and the standard throughout the league is exceptional, which means a lot of these big teams are struggling a little bit. But Arsenal didn't struggle too much today, Danny. We'll go through the main games, the main stories from this midweek round. I guess more evidence, Dan, that, Arsenal looked the most complete, the most structured, the strongest. They made changes like many others did. It's always a little shaky until you get that second goal, which was Bukayo Saka scored that late, come off the bench to score in, I think, the 91st minute. So there's a little bit of angst around the Emirates. But, more evidence, Danny, that Arsenal are certainly the team to beat.
Yeah, they are. And I think it's the defensive side of the game. And I was saying on the show, this is probably the best defence fundamentally, I think, from front to back since Mourinho's Chelsea, which I think was 2003, 2004.
Yeah, around 05 or something like that. Yeah.
They just look so strong and they're happy to deal with counter-attacks, they're happy to deal with physicality, they're happy to deal with pace, and it starts from the front as well. And I think that's sort of the difference between Arsenal and the other teams at the moment, that not all the other teams are pressing from the front like Arsenal. They're just non-stop and they can afford to rest players. Okay, they got a few more injuries today as well, which is obviously not a great thing, but their strength in depth as well. They're just in such a good place at the moment. And I think the only way that they don't win the league is if they get in their own way. Arsenal are the only team that can stop Arsenal at the moment from winning the league.
Yeah, both centre-backs are out again today. I see that Odegaard's back in midfield for Eze. Madueke played, looked really, really sharp. Ben White at right back. And a guy, Danny, on our shows, you probably know, we always have an underappreciated. We're not going to do it this midweek. It's tough to see all the games, of course, but Mikel Merino playing as a centre-forward for Arsenal, he's a little underappreciated, isn't he? He's under the radar as a pretty good striker and made a lovely run for his goal, a really nice ball from Ben White. But he does a really good job when, of course, other strikers right now are just coming back from injury. And
I think it's not just the goals that he scored, because obviously, they've been important recently, but I think it's his movement. I know myself personally as like a former centre-back. If you're playing against a centre-forward or someone that doesn't stay in that centre-forward position, your comfort blanket as a centre-back is having someone to mark. And if you've not got somebody to mark, you go looking for them. And he drags centre-backs out. And I think we saw, I think the most evident one was probably against Tottenham, when he got the ball.
He kept dropping deep.
Yeah, and he played the ball to Trossard, and the whole of the 18-yard box had been emptied out just because of his movement. And I agree with what you're saying. I think he's such an unsung hero in this team. His movement just frees up space for his teammates, and he's really selfless as well.
Yeah, I mean, David Ryan made a great save, didn't he? Other than that, I mean, Brentford are a solid side. They stayed in the game. We like what Keith Andrews is doing there. But I just think the control, I remember making a note in the game, I thought the creative football was very good down both flanks, particularly the right flank. I think Noni Madueke is going to be, when he gets, I feel like he's one of those wingers, Danny, that the biggest example is Cristiano Ronaldo, that was at United and was amazing skill, but didn't really produce a lot. Then all of a sudden it clicked. I hope for Arsenal that it does click with Madueke, that he's going to start producing, start scoring. He's very similar to Saka, but Saka has always had that goal threat and that nous and that end product, when Madueke still hasn't quite got it. But I think when he does, he is a brilliant addition to the squad.
Oh, he isn't. And I think what you're seeing now as time goes on is game changers from the bench. And if you've got that strength in depth, you want to give a player a rest. If you need to change the game somewhere, in amongst, in the second half, if things aren't going your way. I just think that Arsenal at the moment, the most complete team and the most complete squad, just with everything that they've got. And give Arteta great credit, because from the minute he came in, he's built from the back. He's got an unbelievable defence.
Yep.
And going forward, they've got individual brilliance, but it can be individual or it can be collective as well. They're just in such a good spot at the moment.
Just a couple of things to note, Danny, before we move on, and a little concern. I think Declan Rice looked like he had a bit of a problem late in the game. Who's the centre-back? Mosquera come off injured as well, and Mikel Arteta saying that he might have a problem as well. So they've got that to concern. And just quickly on the next game, I see they're Aston Villa away. I mean, Villa are absolutely flying. They're the form team. I think if you look at the wins, consecutive wins, that's going to stretch Arsenal, isn't it, to everything that they've got, given the way that Villa are playing and that Villa Park atmosphere right now.
Yeah, Villa Park, as you know as well, Robbie, it's one of the best places to go and play. The atmosphere there is sensational. And the fact that Villa are on a good run, Ollie Watkins as well, got in the goals tonight as well. So I think that's massive. And I think a lot of people will really be looking at it, because I think everyone's saying at the moment that Arsenal, they are the real deal. They're winning games when they're not playing at their best. And that's full credit to them. That's a huge game at the weekend, because if Villa can get the 3 points, all of a sudden, everything starts to close up a little bit.
Yeah. Let's move on, Danny. And again, it's there's so many games going on at the same time over these last couple of days. But the game I think we both kind of kept a close eye on was Leeds United versus Chelsea. And I mean, wow, what a game! What an upset! 3-1 to Leeds. Biol in the 6th minute with an excellent goal from a central defender. Al Tanaka that I really like as a midfield player scored, make it 2-0. Yeah. Neto scored. Calvert-Lewin made it 3-1. Wow, again, this is kind of interesting. They made changes, like lots of changes. Badia Shield was defending, and Tosin came into the team as well. I think there was 5 changes. Yeah. Esteval continued on the right-hand side and looked a little frustrated. You see the little kick out where he got a yellow card. Is this... Let me start with this, Danny. And this is a statement I'm going to make, and I want you to give me your take on it. I think when we watch Arsenal right now, I see every day, I imagine every day of training, every game, every minute of the game is about them producing the performance, the results to win a title. I feel like, of course, they got real close. I feel like they are a team, when you look at them, look like they are absolutely flat out to win a Premier League title. Now, it's still early in the season. When I watch Chelsea play down in the Premier League, I just don't quite have the same sense that they are really going and driving and fighting for a title. I feel like they're still growing. They're still finding themselves. It's something that the manager said a couple of times, particularly more last season, to be fair, that they're not ready for a title race. He's kind of said this time, let's just wait and see where we are through December and January. There's so many games. Is that something that's fair? And, how important is that one team, it looks like, with these, comparing Arsenal and Chelsea, that are really, really ready to win it, and Chelsea feel like, we're trying to improve and all that, but we're not really ready. Is that fair?
I think it's fair to say after today's game, because I thought before this they had that belief. They won the Conference League, they won the Club World Cup, they beat Barcelona at home. What they did against Arsenal with 10 men for so long was incredible. They were aggressive, they were on the front foot. I think today was just a case of too many changes. There was too many changes, and obviously one which was enforced regardless was Caicedo in midfield, because obviously he got sent off against Arsenal. He's a huge miss, because I think he sort of controls the tempo. And what you got with Leeds United, we know what they're like. They signed so many physical big players in the summer, so it was no surprise that they scored from a set piece, and they just didn't allow Chelsea to settle at any point. But I think before the game today, I would have looked at them and thought they can be contenders, because I think it's a group of players that have grown together, and I think they've grown through the good, the bad, and the indifferent. I think.
Do you think they're ready to contend, though, Danny? I agree with you, but I just don't know whether I see that in the way that they attack each game.
I think the big difference is, I think Arsenal have the best squad. I think Arsenal have the best starting 11. I just think when you look at this Chelsea team, because we do talk about there's a huge element of youth in that team, and with and with that comes inconsistency. And I think if you're going to win a title, then you have to be consistent. And Chelsea are a team at the moment that, and this is a difference. Chelsea at the moment are, when they're at their best, they can challenge for the Premier League title. When they're not at their best, they can't.
Yeah.
Arsenal, on the other hand,
difference,
when they're at their best, they're challenging. When they're not at their best, they're still challenging.
Winning.
And that, for me, is the big difference. And that will take time. But I think Chelsea are a work in progress, but I think they're getting closer each year. And I personally think that they're probably going to be the closest to Arsenal in terms of being able to catch them. It's going to be really difficult now. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Just a quick line. I got to mention Leeds United real quick, Danny, because me and Robbie have been talking about Leeds, and I said, I think in the last pod, that the pressure's really increasing on Daniel Farke. From what I see, when what my eyes tell me, they ain't bad. That's not a bad Leeds United team. I love this system today. 5-3-2, played both Mecha and Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front as a front two. I think if you look at the midfield three, the central three, that's a pretty good midfield three. I think I worry a little bit about the creativity maybe in the wider areas for Leeds United in terms of scoring goals. What a performance it is. We all know what it's like to play at Ellen Road, Danny, and I'm just quite happy for Daniel Farke, because it's almost like, well, how long does he get? Because we know he's been here before, and he's struggled to keep teams in the league. That's such a shot in the arm for Leeds, for the fans, for the players, for the manager, for the football club of trying to, obviously stay in the division. So I just wanted to give Leeds a little credit and a well done, because that's some result to beat Chelsea at home, the way they played. And the other thing, Danny, and I'll get your take on it as well, watching the game, I'm thinking, they're 2-0 up, they're 2-1 up, and all I saw was Leeds United still attacking, didn't want to drop off like many would, and maybe people like us might say, when you're winning like that, be a little bit more cautious. We had an end-to-end period for the game when they were leading, but it was end-to-end. I'm like, it's just a bit risky. But then they scored the third goal. So that's that's justification. It wasn't at the end of the game they got the third goal. I think the 74th minute with Calvert-Lewin. Is that something that you enjoyed about Leeds today?
Yeah, it is. And as you quite rightly say, we've both played at Leeds United. They demand that. They demand to be on the, on the front foot.
Front
foot. I think one of the problems that they've had this season, or where they've been unfortunate, is both boxes. They've missed good chances. They've conceded poor goals. I honestly feel as though they should have more points than what they currently have at the moment. But I think what they did, they made good signings in the summer as in terms of physicality. And, midfield, that for me is really important, because if you're going to come up to the Premier League and go toe-to-toe with all these teams that love to dominate the ball, like Southampton tried to do, there's only going to be one way it's going to end. But what you've got, and I want to give a little shout out to Ampadu as well, former Chelsea player. For me, he's really been sensational. He's been absolutely sensational. And this is a team that, newly promoted teams, if they're going to stay up, it's going to be about their home form. Huge win for them today. It'll give them great confidence, and they can go forward. But they've definitely got a huge chance now to stay in the Premier League. Yeah.
Okay, home form. Talking about home form, let's go to Liverpool. Liverpool won, Sunderland won. Sunderland continues to be an incredible story, really, of a club that bought so many, basically produced a new team for this division. And of course, the big story, Liverpool, Danny. Now, again, games going on at the same time. It's tough to kind of get a detailed analysis of this game as well. Mo Salah started from the bench, came off the bench a little later on. Florian Wirtz, Danny, looked like he was lively, he was bright, big impact in the game, ended up being a goal, ended up being a Mukiele own goal. Gosh, I expected a Liverpool win here. I know the last game was a bit ugly, but I think he picked the same team, didn't he?
One change, I think it was Robertson came in
at left back.
I think that was it though, yeah.
We don't get you on the pod very often, Danny. God, there's so much talk about Liverpool.
Sure there is, yeah.
There is something missing, right? It probably is a combination of things. What do you think is the most important thing that's changed from last season to this season?
Their pressing. I think their pressing is absolutely huge as in terms of a difference.
Different players that have left the club and ones that have come in not doing it the same way.
So I think you have to look at, you look at Diaz, you look at Nunez, both been sold tragically. Obviously, they lost Jota. But I think when you look at this team at the moment, everybody's talking about the defence. Everybody's saying, defensively they're being caught out. The reason that they haven't been being caught out before this season, so to speak, they haven't become worse defenders overnight. There's less protection. But the defence is different though, Danny. I get what you're saying, but the defence is different. Those fullbacks are different. You still think it's more of the starting from the front? Yeah, I do, because how many times have we seen how many times have we seen Liverpool players isolated this season, whether it be in the wide areas, whether it be through the middle? That's something you don't usually see. And because the personnel have changed, you're used to, if Liverpool lose the ball, what we're used to seeing is they lose the ball, their counter press is incredible. So the opposition have two choices. They go back to the goalkeeper, well, you can't counter attack, or they just hit the ball aimlessly forward. So then the Liverpool defenders can just sort of mop that up and deal with it. Now, for me, it's sort of like the opposition can have 2 or 3 touches, can get their head up and can play the pass. And that for me is one of the reasons probably that Salah's not in the starting 11, because there's no doubt about it. He's been one of the greatest ever players in the Premier League, been one of Liverpool's greatest ever players. But when Liverpool find themselves in a situation that they're in now, he becomes a luxury player because he doesn't do any of the defensive side. So if he's not scoring goals and he's not assisting, he's not helping the team. So
no, defensively, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you this, Robbie, as well, because it was something I was speaking to Tim about when we were on air. Do you think from Slot's side of things, obviously he won the Premier League last year, I think a lot of people looked at it and thought, well, this is Klopp's team, this is Klopp's style. Do you think Slot went into the summer and thought to himself, I'm going to go and spend money, I've got to make this team my own? Do you think any part of that has come into his thinking going into this new season?
I don't know whether it was that sort of personal to him. Like, I feel like the football club in total, Danny, said, wow, this is a great time to strengthen the squad when you're doing well. I personally feel it was too many changes.
Yeah.
But back to your question, I don't know whether he was trying to, he's trying to make it better, Danny. Remember him saying like that they want to get better and he wants to win games more easily. Well, probably bringing some of the players that he brought in, the expectation was that they'd make the team better. That has not been the case, and I think we all should learn, and we've probably seen this many times before, where players coming into the club, and no matter what the fee, it's never a guarantee they're going to hit the ground running and be more effective. So, I just think the club as a whole, I wouldn't think that I think it's between Rob Edwards and Richard Hughes and Arne Slot of trying to take the team forward and being even better and dominating in Europe a little bit more, but they maybe underestimated the quality of some of the players that sadly are not at the club anymore, and it's been difficult. Let me throw you back an even harder question.
Okay.
Just reading this week, a couple or hearing on some phone-ins and chats, stuff like that. Is Mo Salah, was he or is he a better player when he's angry, when he's trying to prove himself, when he's playing for a new contract? And now that he's kind of got there and he's done it, is the edge gone off of his game because of that new deal being signed?
I'm desperate
Human
to say
nature. Human nature, Dan.
but I'm desperate to say no, because you've played with top class players and that desire never goes.
Yeah.
Regardless of anything. I just think that what we're seeing now is, so for so long, I think Liverpool could sort of defend with 9 outfield players. So long they did it. They were just such a well-oiled machine. They were incredible. And Salah could be sort of that luxury player who didn't have to do too much. And I thought, obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold, he got a lot of criticism, but he never got any support from Salah. And Salah was able to stay in a position that when Liverpool won the ball, it's like, okay, we'll get the ball to Salah and he'll go and do the rest. Now, the problem is that the team isn't functioning the same way now. So therefore, you can't necessarily have that luxury player. Because I think we've seen with Slot, the last 2 games, he's gone back to basics. He's saying to the team, okay, let's just sit a little bit deeper at times and see if we can maybe play on the counter-attack and have a little bit more control out of possession. Now, the interesting thing is, Robbie, and I'll throw this one back at you, do you see Salah starting at the weekend, or do you think this is a situation where Slot's looking at it and thinking, I can't have any luxury players in the team at the moment. I need every single player on that field that's going to do the defensive side of things, not just the attacking side of things.
Well, it's a couple of games now he hasn't started.
Yeah.
Florian Wirtz has looked a little brighter. I think Salah will start the next game, Danny. I think I think the manager will hopefully feel like he hasn't felt great about being on the sideline. There was a picture of his face, and there's been reports about. In fact, the manager said that he wasn't very happy, but he's been professional. I think he'll put him back in. Could be wrong. Could totally be wrong. The manager might be thinking it's looked a little stronger. They've not conceded so much, but I would expect him to start the next one.
Yeah, you would expect him to come in sooner rather than later, because he's still one of Liverpool's best players. But I think the notion of him being on the side and being okay, well, he's going to be eager to get back into the team. Regardless of how eager he is, he's not going to change his defensive attributes. I don't think that's going
No, I
to
don't think
change.
he will.
So
No.
so I think from Slot's perspective, it's got to be, okay, well, if we put Salah in the team, we've got a game changer, although it's not been going according to plan this season, but we don't get anything defensive from him. But that's what you deal with when you've got a player like Mo Salah, because he is the game changer. He is the player that can make a dull or boring 0-0 into a 1-0. But as of yet, he's not been doing it. And that's why I call him sort of a luxury player in a team at the moment that can't afford to have those players, because they're just trying to find their feet, and that for me is a problem at the moment. And I don't know whether he comes back into the team at the weekend.
Yeah, it's Leeds. I just double checked there. It's Leeds in it. It's Leeds United away.
Yeah, so that's a difficult one.
It might be. Yeah, it might be that he feels he needs a bit more of a reliable force on that right side, just to because there's going to be a incredible atmosphere, as it often is. But the way that result they've had today, Leeds, we'll see. Wow, what a game for Liverpool to try and go there and turn things around. Talking about teams that are trying to turn things around, Tottenham Hotspur went to St James's, Danny, and we both worked together in the studio on this game. And gosh, what a game, and what a comeback from Spurs, and what a performance from Cristian Romero, the central defender that scores a diving header and an overhead kick to get his team a part of the points. Newcastle United, Dan, will be pretty livid, won't they, that they didn't see out this victory, because they looked for large parts the much better team. Yeah,
and I think when they made it 2-1 so late on as well, I think they're thinking to themselves, okay, we've got this win now. But that's where I think you have to give credit to Tottenham, to Thomas Frank, to the players. I'm so desperate for Thomas Frank to do well. I really am, because when Tottenham appointed him, I was like, oh, you know what, this is a really, really good managerial sort of appointment. And I think when you looked at Brentford with him, he was incredible. But you go from Brentford to Tottenham, and it's so different. You know, you're expected to win so many of the games. I think you're expected to be the team that is proactive rather than reactive. And I just think that Thomas Frank needs to be given time. And I think if you swap things around and their home form was their away form and their away form was a home form, I don't think there'd be this much talk. But because they've been so poor at home, I think they've only won one game this season in the Premier League. And that was the first game of the season. But I think what we did see yesterday is a team that are prepared, to work hard for one another. They've got the desire, they've got the commitment, the determination, because Newcastle is one of the most difficult places to go to at the best of times. But to come back 2 times, I think that's huge. So I think that's a real big thing for Tottenham and for Thomas Frank, and he'll be hoping that they can continue it or take it into the weekend game where he plays against his previous team, Brentford, at home, which will be interesting.
Do you think he'll get time, Danny? Do you think Thomas Frank will be allowed the time to, because he has to get time? I mean, it's so difficult to try and change, particularly the way they played last year under Postecoglou. It's totally different. I'd love to see Thomas Frank start to build a bit of a structure, a pattern that's identifiable with the team. I don't like all the chopping and changes, and I don't think that helps the players too much. I know it's difficult when you've got so many games, Danny, like every few days. There's got to be a certain amount of rotation, maybe not so much time on the training ground that he would have wanted. But it's got to get better. It's got to get better, as you said, particularly at home, because the pressure comes from those home fans when they come and they show up in 62,000 people and they're not winning games. I just hope that it doesn't get... this a home game against Brentford, his former club. Yeah. We know what happened with Vicario, the last home game. I fear that the fans could be close to turning it pretty nasty if it doesn't go well. Are you worried about that for the weekend?
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be, because the team that they're playing against, they're expected to beat Brentford, and that's no disrespect to Brentford, but they are expected to beat them. I think the one thing I would say from Thomas Frank's perspective, obviously Son's gone. They've not had Kulusevski for 1 minute. They've not had Solanke for 1 minute. They've not had Maddison for 1 minute. They're missing huge players. And, you look at the number of players that they went after as well. Eze was a huge example. Semenyo was another one. I think Mbumo as well. Gibbs-White potentially. And they weren't able to get them. So I think that's something that you have to look at as well. But they have to now sort of become the proactive team. That's why I think their away form's been fine. They've been able to be the reactive team, sit back and then sort of play on the counter. But they've got to be they've got to get better. Yeah, they've got to be the protagonists at home, and they have to start well. And if they start well, then the fans will get behind them. And it's, you look at Tottenham versus Brentford, and I think when you look at a Premier League weekend, you think to yourself, okay, yeah, well, it's not a bad game. This becomes a very, very big game. A very big game because of the situation at Tottenham.
Just want to get a quick line on to get your thoughts on Newcastle United before we move on again and get to some of the other matches. I feel like with Newcastle, I thought this was another example of it, that in certain moments they don't possess the ability really to kill games off, to keep possession for possession's sake. I feel like they're flat out, the two modes for them really, they're flat out press and energy and physicality, or they're very sitting back and counter-attacky. There's not a middle ground where we're winning this game. Let's just possess the ball. Let's make Spurs, they look a little bit down and out. Let's just possess. Is that where Newcastle are struggling to kick on? Is that, I don't know, unless they're flat out, they struggle to be able to control games with steady possession football?
Yeah, do you know what? It's a weird one because I was thinking about it. Last night. The simple fact of, you look at Newcastle, I think they're at their best when they're playing on their counter-attack. But then that would probably fit in with, oh, well, their away form's got to be good then. Their away form's been awful because when the onus isn't on them, that means they can play on the counter-attack, whereas their home form has been good. I think they're at their best.
Odd.
It's odd, but I think they're at their best. Okay, they had a narrow defeat by Liverpool. They had a narrow defeat against Arsenal at home. They beat Manchester City at home. They're at their best, as you quite rightly said, when they can sit back and then they can counter. You've got pace out wide, which is a big thing.
Langer, you got Gordon, Barnes.
The two fullbacks, I think Livramento and Hall coming back, that is huge for them. And I think when they get themselves right on top of things, because they were both out for a while, I think that's going to be huge. And I love Eddie Howe to bits. I think what he's done at the football club and how he tries to progress things is huge, and it's something that he wants to do. It's a massive football club, but like you say, it's just trying to have a little bit more control in possession against the teams that are somewhat struggling in the league, not the biggest teams where the onus is not on you.
All right, mate, let's move into this game. Fulham 4, Man City 5. I mean, do me a favour. I mean, crikey. It was a crazy game. I mean, 5-1 up City. They were 5-1 up, weren't they, in the second half? They were 5-1 up, and they were kind of hanging on at the end, almost went to 5-5. A couple of things from this game, Danny. I think there's a couple of talking points here. First off, the striker, Erling Haaland, 111 Premier League appearances, 100 goals, the fastest to that. I mean, when we've got the graphic there, I mean, that's some list of people on that list. Henry's on it, Aguero's on it, and Shearer's on it. I mean, that's some list of players. Just give me a quick thought on Haaland. What makes him special, and is he going to be around to beat Shearer's total number of Premier League goals?
I think the only reason he doesn't beat Shearer's total of goals, who, by the way, is one of the, if not the greatest ever centre-forward in the Premier League, is if he was to leave Manchester City and go elsewhere in Europe. But other than that, I just think he's in such a wonderful place. And what you always do, and I don't know if you do the same thing when you're watching central midfielders, but when I watch centre forwards, I always look and think, right, okay, how would you potentially try and stop this centre forward? Because when I was playing, you would always get, the Friday, you'd go and sit down and you'd watch footage of the centre forward that you're going to be playing against, and it's like, okay, well, he's a little bit weak here, so maybe if I can get him to do this or get him to do that, then I can stop him. I look at Haaland, I'm like, I don't see a weakness. I think don't quote me on this, but I think yesterday was the first time he'd been caught offside.
Really?
This season in the Premier League.
Wow.
It's something you have to look at. And he's a player that plays on the shoulder quite a lot.
Yeah,
so think
smart.
about how good his movement is. He's strong, he's quick, he's physical. He's, we saw, I think it was for the second goal for Reinders, he just dropped off and then played a wonderful ball through. He's the complete centre forward. But what I would say is that, we always say that he's an incredible centre forward. Having that reliance on him, Foden obviously I think he got his fourth goal in 2 games yesterday.
Yeah, a couple of goals,
you do need some other players, I think, to step up. But he's sensational. I just don't think he's got a weakness.
Is it too simple to say that Man City won't win the title, don't it, because they concede too many goals?
No, I don't think it is. If you go back years and years ago, what was it? Sir Alex Ferguson said, strikers win your games and defenders win your titles. And I think it's so true, because if you look at it, who go for the most amount of money? Centre forwards, creators, they go for the most amount of money. They're paid the most money because scoring a goal is the hardest thing to do. So defensively, if you're solid and you maybe concede 1 or you don't concede any, or you maybe concede 2 the odd time, it means you've got to score less goals. And what happened yesterday, obviously with Man City being 5-1 up and then nearly giving it up in the last kick of the game.
Crazy, isn't it?
I just don't see.
Crazy.
I don't know what you think, but I just don't see Arsenal doing that at this current moment at any point.
The only thing because they're going to score a ton of goals, I think. I mean, if Arsenal go through a period of drawing a few, because they ain't going to lose many because of that, you know, and City can keep scoring the goals and get a little better. I mean, I'm not sure how far Rodri is off. I mean, he surely would help the goals against situation, but I feel like they've tilted so much to start scoring tons of goals that they defensively they look a little unstable. That's kind of crazy. He won't be happy with that.
No, he won't be. And I think just going back to the point about Arsenal, I think, you know, when I say that the only team that can stop Arsenal is if they get in their own way. What I've been really impressed with this season is Arteta. You know, because I've said previously before that, like,
I remember you saying about that.
Arteta has a huge sort of amount of input on his players on the field because, you know, there's still some young players in that team. And I think when Arteta is, you know, very, not sort of aggressive, but looks a little bit nervy or is all over
agitated.
the place. Yeah, agitated. I think that sort of goes onto the field. And I think it affects some of his plays. We haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
Now, if we get to, I don't know, February time, March time, and it's still relatively close.
Might start seeing it.
Does potentially the experience that City have of winning the Premier League, does that start to take over if Arsenal do get a little bit nervous? Because I'm sure that's what Guardiola will be looking for.
Yeah, he want to be able to stay in touch, won't he, and keep that pressure on. And we will see. I mean, that's right now, City are close, and I think they are going to keep Arsenal honest, but I mean, they've got to address the goals against. I mean, that's crazy. All right, Danny, let's just look around just the other games and things that might stand out to you. The top of this list here is Brighton 3, Aston Villa 4. Just a quick, you know, Aston Villa, mate. I just saw the highlights of the goals and stuff. I mean, Ollie Watkins scoring again is great because we know the other players in the team have improved and have developed, and Malland looks like he's really starting to find his form now. Well, I guess how far can they go, Aston Villa, Danny? They're right. I think they're third, aren't they? They're right.
Yeah, they are the third. They're third, and they play Arsenal at the weekend. I'm just looking at it now.
Gosh.
If they were to beat Arsenal, they'd go 3 points behind them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's at Villa Park, isn't it? Is it at Villa Park?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
I don't know. You know that, and this is what makes football so bizarre. We're talking about Chelsea. We're talking about Manchester City. We're talking about Arsenal. And just looking at this table, Aston Villa are ahead of Chelsea, 3 points ahead of them as well, but they don't come into the conversation, do they?
Amazing, isn't it? They won the last 4. They're the form team right now. You're right.
It's now, and now what you've got Watkins. I don't think he'd scored for 2 months and he gets 2 goals today. That's huge for them. And Villa Park was one of my favourite stadiums to play at. Absolutely love playing there. And if the home the home fans, they will be ready to go at the weekend. And they'll go into that game full of confidence that they can beat Arsenal. I don't think there's any doubt in their minds that they'll be thinking to themselves, we can beat them and get within 3 points of them. So it's so difficult because Aston Villa are having an unbelievable season. They're third in the league, but they just don't come into your mind as in terms of when you're talking about title contenders. But if they get the win at the weekend, then you've got to start asking the questions and say, well, why aren't they then coming into your mind as title contenders?
Danny, I'm going to go through these last few games. I'm going to ask you one question on each game, and you're going to give me an answer. Okay. Bournemouth 0, Everton 1. How good could Everton be if they had a better striker?
Yes.
Is that their biggest problem?
Yes, it is, because you look at Njai, you look at Dewsbury Hall, and you look at Grealish. They've got players that can create, no question about it. I think if they had a consistent centre forward who was putting the ball into the back of the net, I think they could be looking at top 6, top 7. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree. Burnley 1, Crystal Palace. Burnley 0, Crystal Palace 1. Oliver Glasner's my question to you. His contract's up at the end of the season. Is he going to be in the Premier League? With which club is he going to be at?
Well, there won't be a shortage of takers. I think some of his press conferences recently, I think he talked about Gahey, didn't he? About we couldn't afford to let him go. He wants the team to spend money in January. I think that's the simple equation here. And whether they do or whether they don't could lead to what happens next with him. But if he left Crystal Palace, he will still be in the Premier League, and I think it would be
one of the bigger clubs, isn't it?
One of the bigger clubs. He's been unbelievable since the second he stepped through the door.
I think this might be the last one. Wolves 0. Nottingham Forest won. Sean Dyche gets a really good victory for Forest there, and that was always the right appointment for.
Yes.
Is that going to be a longer term Sean Dyche? Is that football? Is that going to appease Marinakis and those Forest fans longer term, or is it going to be like a one season they might look to change?
I hope that it's not short term. I think it's a clever appointment because Postecoglou was never the right appointment, and that's nothing to do with his credentials as a manager. That's because of the squad that he's got. If you look at Nuno, he's very, very similar to Sean Dyche in terms of the way he sees the game. So straight away, you know that Sean Dyche is going to come in and go, right, what Nuno was doing, that's my style. And the players then, they're like, brilliant, we can go back to similar to what we were doing last season. So I hope it's long term because I really like him as a manager. And obviously the roots that he's got with Nottingham Forest and obviously, you know, Steve Stone being there and Ian Woan as well. There's a lot of connections with Nottingham Forest and great football club. And I hope that it's long term.
Danny, you're in the studio again tomorrow.
Yes.
It's Manchester United versus West Ham. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time on USA Network. Have a great show. Thanks for coming on to the Two Robbies podcast. I'm sure we're going to have you before the end of the season. And just to everybody else, thanks for watching and listening to this. Our next episode is Sunday, December the 7th to recap Matchweek 15. So until then, take care and goodbye. And we'll see you next time.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.